Park was tired, not the normal kind of tired that a good night of sleep could fix. This was the bone-deep exhaustion that came from working 48 hours straight at Seoul General Hospital. His feet hurt, his back ached, his eyes felt like someone had rubbed sand into them. He walked into his small apartment at 3 in the morning, dropped his bag on the floor and kicked off his shoes. He did not turn on the lights. He did not eat dinner. He did not even brush his teeth. He just walked straight to his bedroom, pulled off his scrubs and fell face first onto his bed. He was too tired to find pajamas, too tired to pull up the blankets, too tired to care that he was lying there completely naked on top of his sheets. Within seconds, he was asleep. Somewhere far above Earth in the cold darkness of space, a ship floated silently. It was shaped like a teardrop, silver and smooth, with no visible windows or doors. Inside, a crew of 12 insect-like beings worked at their stations. They were a species known throughout the galaxy for their dedication to science and their absolute commitment to never harming other living things. Captain Bora stood at the center of the bridge. She was old for her species, her exoskeleton faded to a pale gray, but her compound eyes were still sharp. She watched the main screen, which showed a forest somewhere in the mountains of Korea. "Target acquired," said one of her crew members. "A male deer, approximately 4 years old, perfect specimen for the biodiversity catalog." Bora nodded her triangular head. "Engage the collection beam. Be gentle. We do not want to frighten the creature." The ship hummed. A beam of blue light shot down toward the planet's surface. But something went wrong. The coordinates were off. Not by much, just 47 kilometers, but that was enough. The beam did not hit the forest. It hit an apartment building in Seoul, and instead of collecting a sleeping deer, it collected a sleeping human. The beam pulled up through the ceiling, through the night sky, through the atmosphere, and into the ship. It deposited him gently on a metal platform in the middle of the collection bay. He did not wake up during any of this. Was the first to see him. She was young, barely an adult by standards, and this was her first research mission. She had been waiting in the collection bay with her scanner, ready to catalog the deer's vital signs. Instead, she found herself staring at something she had never seen before. It was soft. It had no exoskeleton at all. Its skin was smooth and bare, a light brown color, and it had strange black fur only on its head. It was lying on its back with its mouth open, making a rumbling sound that did not understand. She screamed. The sound echoed through the ship. Within moments, the collection bay was filled with crew members, all of them clicking and chittering in confusion and alarm. "What is that? Is it dead? Why is it making that noise? Why does it have no shell?" Captain Bora pushed through the crowd. She looked down at the creature on the platform and felt her blood turn cold. She had studied the galaxy species for over 60 years. She knew exactly what this was. "That," she said quietly, "is a human." The clicking stopped. Everyone stared. "A human," whispered, "from the restricted planet, the one we are forbidden to contact." "Yes," Bora said, her voice was grim. "We have made a terrible mistake." On the platform, began to wake up. The first thing he noticed was that his bed felt wrong, too hard, too cold. The second thing he noticed was the light. It was too bright, even through his closed eyelids. The third thing he noticed was the sound, a strange clicking noise like dozens of insects were surrounding him. He opened his eyes. For a long moment, he simply stared. His brain refused to process what he was seeing. Tall creatures with triangular heads and huge shiny eyes, 4 arms each, bodies covered in what looked like shells. They were standing all around him, looking down at him like he was some kind of zoo animal. Sat up slowly. He looked at the creatures. He looked at the metal walls. He looked at the strange glowing panels on the ceiling. Then he looked down at himself. He was naked. Completely, absolutely, undeniably naked. Screamed. The alien screamed back. The next few minutes were chaos. Tried to cover himself with his hands while shouting in Korean. The scattered in all directions, bumping into each other and knocking over equipment. Grabbed a thermal blanket from a storage unit and threw it at the human, who caught it and wrapped it around his waist like his life depended on it. "What is happening?" shouted. "Where am I? Who are you? Why am I naked?" They did not understand him. Their translator was not calibrated for human languages. They just heard a series of loud, harsh sounds that made their antennae flatten against their heads. Captain Bora raised all four of her arms. "Everyone calm down. Activate the universal translator, now." Ran to a control panel, her legs shaking. She pressed buttons with trembling fingers. A small device on the wall beeped in word. "Translation matrix active," said a mechanical voice. "Human language detected. Korean dialect calibrating." Was still shouting. "This is a dream. This has to be a dream. I am asleep. I am going to wake up and—" "Please," Captain Bora said, and now could understand her. "Please calm yourself. We mean you no harm." "Stop shouting." He stared at the old alien who had just spoken to him in perfect Korean. "You can talk," he said. "Yes, the translator allows us to understand each other." Bora took a careful step forward. "I am Captain Bora of the research vessel Quiet Observer, and I must apologize to you. We have made a terrible, unforgivable mistake." Clutched the blanket around himself. "Mistake? What kind of mistake?" "We were attempting to collect a deer from your planet for our biodiversity study. Our coordinates were incorrect. We collected you instead." Blinked. "You were trying to kidnap a deer and you got me." "Yes, we are deeply, deeply sorry." Looked around the room again. At the alien creatures. At the metal walls. At the impossible reality of his situation. "Okay," he said slowly. "Okay, so just send me back, put me back in my apartment. Pretend this never happened." Captain Bora's antennae drooped. "I am afraid that is not possible. Our faster-than-light engine has already engaged. We are currently 12 light-years from your planet." 12 light-years, repeated. "Yes, the journey back will take approximately 3 of your months." Was quiet for a very long time. They watched him nervously, waiting for him to scream again or cry or attack them in rage. Instead, he took a deep breath and said, "Do you have any food? I have not eaten in 2 days." They looked at each other in confusion. This was not the reaction they had expected at all. The food was strange. It looked like gray paste and tasted like nothing had ever eaten before. But it was filling, and right now, that was all that mattered. He sat in what they called the crew nutrition area and ate 3 bowls of the stuff while the aliens watched him with a mixture of fascination and horror. "He just keeps eating," whispered to Captain Bora. "Does he not need to stop?" "Apparently not," Bora replied. She had been studying the human since they brought him to the nutrition area. His behavior was completely unexpected. According to everything she knew about psychology, a being who had been kidnapped and taken far from home should be terrified, angry, desperate. But this human was just sitting there eating paste like it was a normal Tuesday morning. Finished his 3rd bowl and finally looked up. The blanket was still wrapped around his waist. His hair was messy and sticking up in all directions. He had dark circles under his eyes, but his expression was calm. "Thank you for the food," he said. "It was not very tasty, but I feel better now." "You are welcome," Bora said carefully. "I must ask, are you not upset about your situation?" "Thought about this. I am upset," he said. "I am very upset, but being upset will not change anything. I am stuck on your ship for 3 months. I can spend that time screaming and crying, or I can spend it trying to make the best of things." He paused. "Also, I am very tired. When you are this tired, it is hard to feel strong emotions about anything." Leaned forward. She was fascinated by this creature. "You mentioned being tired before. Do humans require a lot of rest?" "We need about 8 hours of sleep every day," said. The in the room made sounds of shock. 8 hours, every day. That was almost a third of each day spent unconscious and helpless. How had this species survived? That is very dangerous, said. What if a predator attacks while you are sleeping? Shrugged, we build walls, we lock doors. We domesticated wolves and turned them into dogs to guard us. We figured it out. You domesticated wolves? Bora asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Yes, they are very good boys. I have one named. My neighbor is taking care of him while I am at work. His face fell a little. I hope she will continue to take care of him while I am gone. Bora felt a twist of guilt in her stomach. This human had a life on his planet, a job, a pet, friends, and she had taken him away from all of it because of a simple coordinate error. We will return you home as quickly as possible, she promised. Until then, we will do everything we can to make you comfortable. Over the next few days, they tried very hard to keep that promise. They gave a private room with a bed that they modified to be softer. They adjusted the temperature to match what they calculated would be comfortable for a human. They even tried to make human food, although the results were not very successful. Appreciated the effort, but he politely asked them to stop after they somehow created a dish that looked like rice but tasted like metal. The biggest problem was clothes. They had 4 arms and hard exoskeletons. Their clothes were designed for bodies very different from us. The best they could do was modify a crew uniform by sewing 2 of the arm holes shut. It was too big and looked ridiculous, but at least was not naked anymore. Thank you, he said when presented him with the modified uniform. This is much better than the blanket. Clicked her mandibles in what was learning to recognize as a smile. I am glad. I cannot imagine how uncomfortable it must be to have your soft skin exposed all the time. You get used to it, said. Humans wear clothes mostly for warmth and social reasons, not for protection. Our skin is tougher than it looks. Is that so? Pulled out a small device. Would you mind if I scanned you? I am a researcher. I have never studied a human before. Your species is listed as restricted in the Galactic database, so there is very little information available. Hesitated, what does the scan do? It is non-invasive. It will just record your biological data. Temperature, heart rate, bone density, things like that. Thought about it, he was a nurse. He understood the value of medical data, and these aliens had been nothing but kind to him since the initial accident. Okay, he said, you can scan me. What the scan revealed shocked the entire crew. Called an emergency meeting in the ship's main conference room. She projected the scan results on a large screen while Captain Bora and the other crew members gathered around. This is impossible, one of the scientists said, staring at the data. These readings cannot be correct. I ran the scan 3 times, said. The readings are accurate. Sat in the corner, wearing his too big uniform, watching the aliens argue about his biology. He did not understand what was so surprising about the results. Captain Bora turned to him. According to this scan, you are what we call a persistence predator. I do not know what that means, said. It means your species hunts by chasing prey until it collapses from exhaustion. You are not fast, but you can keep moving for hours without stopping. Most species in the galaxy cannot do this. They sprint, then rest. You just keep going. Nodded slowly. Yes, I know about this. It is called endurance hunting. Our ancestors did it thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago, another scientist repeated. You mean you no longer need to do it? No, we have farms and grocery stores now. They looked at each other. This species had the biology of a relentless pursuit predator, but they had built a civilization so advanced that they no longer needed to use it. They had turned themselves from hunters into something else entirely. Continued her presentation. There is more. Look at this. She pointed to a section of the data. Humans can survive injuries that would kill most galactic species. They can lose limbs and continue functioning. They can break bones and heal within weeks. Their bodies fight off infections with an immune system that is incredibly aggressive. What about toxins? Bora asked. That is the strangest part. Pulled up another screen. Humans regularly consume substances that are poisonous to other species. Caffeine, capsaicin, ethanol. They drink these things for pleasure. I like coffee, offered helpfully. The room went silent. Everyone stared at him. Coffee contains caffeine, said slowly. Caffeine is a pesticide. Plants produce it to kill insects that try to eat them. Shrugged, it helps me stay awake during long shifts at the hospital. Hospital? Bora asked. What is your occupation? I am a nurse. I take care of sick people and help them get better. The exchanged looks. This creature, this persistence predator who ate poison for breakfast and could survive injuries that would kill them, spent his life helping others heal. Saved the scanned data and closed her presentation. She looked at with new eyes. He was sitting there in his oversized uniform, looking tired and a little confused, completely unaware of how terrifying his species appeared on paper. But he was not scary at all. He was just a person, far from home, trying to make the best of a bad situation. Said, I think I would like to be your friend. Smiled. It was the first real smile he had shown since waking up on the ship. I would like that too. 3 weeks into the journey, the quiet observer stopped at Omega-7 to refuel and resupply. There was enormous, a spinning ring of metal and glass floating in the darkness between stars. Thousands of beings from hundreds of different species lived and worked there. Captain Bora was nervous about bringing onto the station. Humans were a restricted species. No one in the galaxy was supposed to know they existed, but needed supplies that the ship could not provide, food that his body could actually digest, clothes that fit properly, and medicine in case he got sick. Stay close to me, Bora told him as they walked down the boarding ramp. Do not draw attention to yourself. Nodded. He was wearing the best version of the modified uniform, but he still looked strange compared to everyone around him. Too soft, too small, too pink. He kept his head down and followed Captain Bora through the crowded corridors of the... It did not take long for people to notice him. What is that? A tall being with blue scales whispered to its companion. I have never seen that species before, replied a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish. Look at its skin. It has no protection at all. How does it survive? Pretended not to hear the whispers. He had experienced something similar during his first week in Seoul after moving from a small town. Being the outsider was not a new feeling. He just had to be polite and mind his own business. The supply run went smoothly at first. Bora found a shop that sold organic food from various planets, and they managed to find some things that would not make sick. They bought fabric that could be made into proper clothes. They purchased basic medical supplies. Then they went to a drinking establishment to rest before returning to the ship. The place was crowded and loud. Beings of all shapes and sizes sat at tables, drinking strange, colorful liquids and talking in dozens of different languages. Bora found an empty table in the corner, and they sat down. This is nice, said, looking around. It reminds me of the bars near my hospital. The nurses would go there after difficult shifts. Your species drinks alcohol? Bora asked, remembering what it said about humans consuming ethanol. Yes, it helps us relax. Too much is bad for our health, but a little bit is okay. Bora shook her head. Humans were truly bizarre creatures. A shadow fell over their table, looked up and felt his heart skip. Standing in front of them was the largest being he had seen since arriving on the... It was at least 2 meters tall, covered in dark green scales, with a mouth full of sharp teeth and eyes like a crocodile. Its arms were thick with muscle. It looked like it could tear in half without trying. You are sitting at my table, the creature said. Its voice was deep and rough. Bora stood up quickly. We apologize, we did not know, we will move immediately. But the creature was not looking at Bora. It was staring at with obvious disgust. "What is that?" it asked. "Some kind of worm, a grub without its shell." Felt his stomach tighten. He recognized this situation. He had seen it many times in school, in the hospital, on the streets of Seoul. A bully looking for someone weak to hurt. The creature was trying to start a fight. "I am a human," said calmly. "My name is Park. I apologize if we took your seat. We will leave now." He started to stand up, but the creature pushed him back down with one massive hand. "I did not say you could leave, little worm. Maybe I want to see what you look like on the inside." The bar went quiet. Everyone was watching now. Bora stepped forward. "Please, this being is under my protection. He means no disrespect. We are simply passing through." The creature laughed. "Protection? You think an old bug can protect this soft little thing from me? I have killed 40 enemies in combat. What has this creature ever done?" Took a slow breath. His grandmother had taught him something important when he was young. She had said, "Never start a fight, but if someone else starts one, make sure you finish it." "I do not want to fight you," said quietly. Laughed again and leaned down until his face was centimeters from us. "Of course you do not, because you know I would." His fist connected with his nose. He had boxed during his university years. Not professionally, just at a small gym near his dormitory. But he had learned how to throw a proper punch, to twist his hips, to put his whole body into the movement to aim for the weak points. His nose was definitely a weak point. The massive creature stumbled backward, green blood streaming down its face. It stared at with eyes full of shock and pain. "You hit me," it said, sounding almost confused. "Yes," said. He was standing now, his fists raised in a defensive position. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking, but he kept his voice steady. "And I will hit you again if you do not leave us alone." Wiped the blood from its nose and looked at it. Then it really looked at him for the first time. This small, soft creature with no claws, no scales, no natural weapons at all had just broken its nose with a single punch. "What are you?" whispered. "I am a nurse," said. "And speaking of which, you should put pressure on that wound. Tilt your head forward, not back. The bleeding should stop in a few minutes. If it does not, you should see a doctor." Stared at him for a long moment. Then, without another word, it turned and walked away, holding its bleeding nose. The bar erupted into noise. Everyone was talking, pointing at, clicking and chirping and making sounds he did not understand. Bora grabbed his arm and quickly led him out of the establishment. "That was incredible," she said once they were back in the corridor. "And also very foolish. Could have killed you." "Maybe," admitted, "but probably not. Bullies usually back down when someone stands up to them." "How did you know that would work?" Shrugged. "I grew up in a rough neighborhood. I learned to read people." He looked down at his hand. His knuckles were red and already starting to bruise. "Also, my grandmother told me to never let anyone treat me like I am worthless. Even if I am scared, I should stand up for myself." Word spread quickly through the. By the time Bora returned to the quiet observer, everyone had heard about the strange, soft creature that had punched the undefeated and then offered him medical advice. "You are famous," told him when he boarded the ship. She was bouncing with excitement. "I have received 17 messages asking about you. 3 different news services want to interview you. Someone started a discussion thread about humans, and it already has 5,000 comments." Groaned. "I just wanted to buy some food." "Too late for that," said cheerfully. "You are now the most interesting thing to happen on this in years." Captain Bora was less cheerful. She pulled aside and spoke to him in a low voice. "The attention is a problem," she said. "Earth is supposed to be a restricted planet. No contact for another 200 years. But now everyone knows humans exist. Some of them will want to exploit that information." "What do you mean?" "There are groups in the galaxy who profit from new species. They sell information to governments, to corporations, to collectors. Earth has resources. Humans have abilities. There are beings who would pay a lot of money to know where your planet is. Felt a cold fear settle in his stomach. He had not thought about that. He had been so focused on getting home that he had not considered what might happen to Earth if the wrong people found out about it. "What do I do?" he asked. Bora placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "For now, we keep you safe, and we hope that no one causes trouble before we can get you home." But trouble was already on its way. The attack came in the middle of the night. Was asleep in his small room on the quiet observer when he heard a strange hissing sound. He opened his eyes just in time to see a cloud of green gas filling the room. Before he could shout or run, his vision went dark and he collapsed back onto his bed. When he woke up, everything was different. He was lying on a hard metal floor in a room he did not recognize. The walls were dirty. The lights flickered. The air smelled like oil and rust. His head was pounding, and his mouth felt like it was filled with cotton. "He is awake," said a voice somewhere above him. Forced his eyes to focus. 3 figures stood over him, but they were not. These creatures were different, thin and gray, with long arms and fingers that had too many joints. Their eyes were completely black, with no white at all. "Where am I?" asked. His voice came out rough and weak. "You are on our ship," said one of the gray creatures. "You belong to the Merchant Collective now." His blood went cold. The Merchant Collective. Captain Bora had warned him about groups that sold information about new species. These must be the people she was talking about. "What do you want?" he asked. The creature smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You are valuable, human, very valuable. There are many buyers who would pay a great price for information about your species, your biology, your psychology, the location of your planet." It leaned closer. "You will tell us everything. And if I refuse, then we will take what we need. There are ways to extract information from unwilling subjects. None of them are pleasant." Was thrown into a small cell at the back of the ship. The door was made of thick metal with a small window of unbreakable glass. There was no bed, no toilet, nothing except hard floor and dirty walls. He sat in the corner and tried to think. His grandmother had taught him many things when he was young: how to cook, how to clean, how to treat people with respect. But she had also taught him something else, something she had learned during the hard times after the war. "When you are in trouble," she used to say, "do not panic. Panic makes you stupid. Instead, stay calm, look around, find your moment, and when that moment comes, move fast." Looked around his cell. There was nothing useful, just walls and floor and a door he could not open. His hands were bound in front of him with some kind of energy restraint that glowed blue around his wrists. He tested the restraints. They were tight, but not impossibly so. If he could make his hands smaller, he might be able to slip out. He had seen someone do it in a movie once. They had dislocated their thumb to escape from handcuffs. Had never tried it before. He was a nurse. He knew how much it would hurt. He knew the risk of permanent damage, but he also knew what would happen if he stayed in this cell. He took a deep breath, grabbed his left thumb and pulled. The pain was incredible. White-hot fire shot up his arm. He bit down on his lip to keep from screaming. But he felt something pop, and suddenly his hand was smaller, looser, wrong in a way that made his stomach turn. He pulled his left hand out of the restraint. Now he had one free hand and a dislocated thumb. Not ideal, but better than before. He looked at the thumb hanging at an unnatural angle and felt sick. But he had treated dislocations before. He knew what to do. He grabbed the thumb again, closed his eyes, and pushed it back into place. This time he did scream, but he muffled it against his arm. Tears ran down his face. His whole hand was throbbing, but the thumb was back where it belonged, more or less. He slipped his right hand out of the now loose restraints and stood up. Step 1 complete. Now he needed to get out of the cell. He examined the door. It was locked from the outside, some kind of electronic mechanism. He could not hack it or force it open, but there was a small vent near the ceiling, covered by a metal grate. It was tiny, much too small for any of the gray creatures to fit through. But was human. Humans were persistence predators. They were not built for strength or speed. They were built to keep going, to squeeze through tight spaces, to survive things that should have killed them. He climbed up and pulled the grate off the vent. Then he squeezed inside. It was a tight fit. The metal scraped against his skin, leaving cuts and bruises. His injured hand screamed in protest, but he kept crawling inch by inch through the dark, cramped space. After what felt like hours, he found another grate. Through it, he could see a corridor. It was empty. He pushed the grate open and dropped down, landing hard on his feet. Pain shot through his ankles, but nothing was broken. He started to run. The ship was a maze of corridors and rooms. Had no idea where he was going. He just moved forward, ducking into shadows whenever he heard footsteps, trying to find something, anything, that could help him. Then he smelled smoke. At first it was faint. Then it got stronger. Then alarms started blaring throughout the ship and red lights began to flash. Fire, something was on fire. Followed the smoke to a large cargo bay. The entire back wall was covered in flames. Containers were exploding. Sparks flew everywhere. And in the middle of it all, the three gray merchants were running around in a panic, trying to put out the fire with extinguishers that were clearly not working. The smoke was thick and black. The merchants were coughing, struggling to breathe. One of them collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by the fumes. Should have run. He should have found an escape pod and left these creatures to burn. They had kidnapped him. They were going to sell information about his planet. They were going to hurt him to get what they wanted. But he was a nurse. He ran into the smoke. The merchant stared at him in disbelief as he grabbed the fallen one and dragged it toward the door. The smoke burned his eyes and lungs, but he kept moving. He had held his breath during swimming practice in high school. He had worked in rooms full of sick patients with terrible diseases. He knew how to function when his body was telling him to stop. He pulled the merchant to safety, then went back for another one. Then another. Within minutes, all three merchants were lying in the corridor outside the cargo bay, coughing and gasping but alive. Found the ship's fire suppression system and activated it. Foam sprayed from the ceiling, smothering the flames. The alarms continued to blare, but the worst of the danger was over. The lead merchant looked up at him with its black eyes. "You saved us," it said. "Why?" Sat down against the wall. He was exhausted. His hand was throbbing. His lungs felt like they were filled with ash. But he was alive, and so were the creatures who had tried to hurt him. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said. The merchant was silent for a long moment. Then it said, "You are not like any species I have ever encountered." "I am human," said simply. An hour later, the merchant collective ship docked with the quiet observer. Captain Bora and a team of security officers boarded with weapons drawn, ready to fight. They found sitting in the cockpit of the merchant ship, drinking a cup of water. The three merchants were sitting in the corner, quiet and cooperative. Rushed forward and grabbed him in a hug. "We thought we lost you. We have been searching for hours." "I am okay," said, "mostly." Captain Bora looked at the merchants, then at the foam-covered cargo bay. "What happened here?" Shrugged. "There was a fire. I put it out. Then I asked them nicely to take me back to you." The lead merchant made a sound that might have been a laugh. "He saved our lives after we kidnapped him. Then he asked us to return him to his ship, please and thank you." It shook its head. "Humans are terrifying. We want nothing more to do with them." Bora helped to his feet. "Come, let us get you back to the ship. The Galactic Council has heard about what happened. They want to speak with you." Blinked. The Galactic Council. Yes. Apparently, a human who survives kidnapping, escapes through a ventilation shaft, puts out a fire, saves his captors, and then politely asks to be returned home has attracted some attention. groaned. I just want to go home and see my dog. Soon, Bora promised. But first, the galaxy needs to meet humanity, and you are the only human we have. The Galactic Council chambers were the most impressive thing had ever seen. The room was shaped like a giant bowl, with hundreds of seats rising up in circles around a central platform. Each seat was filled with a representative from a different species, tall ones, short ones, ones with scales, ones with feathers, ones that looked like nothing could have imagined. And all of them were looking at him. Stood on the central platform in his modified uniform. Captain Bora had offered to get him something more formal, but he had refused. He was not a diplomat or a politician. He was just a nurse from Seoul who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was not going to pretend to be something he was not. The council recognizes the being known as Park, announced a tall figure at the front of the chamber. Representative of the species known as humans, from the restricted planet called Earth. Bowed politely, the way his parents had taught him. "Thank you for having me," he said. His voice sounded small in the enormous room, but the translation systems carried it to every corner. "We have reviewed the reports of your activities since your accidental arrival in our space," the tall figure continued. "You have demonstrated remarkable abilities, resilience, adaptability, compassion, but you have also raised concerns. Humans are a restricted species for a reason. Your planet was not scheduled for contact for another 200 years. Nodded. I understand. I did not ask to be here. I was sleeping in my bed and then I was on a spaceship. I have tried to cause as little trouble as possible. A murmur went through the crowd. Several representatives made sounds that did not understand. As little trouble as possible, repeated a creature that looked like a floating ball of light. You punched a warrior. You escaped from merchant collective kidnappers. You walked through toxic smoke to save the beings who had captured you. I did not punch him for no reason, said. He was threatening me, and I only escaped because I was scared. And I saved the merchants because they were going to die if I did not. I did what any decent person would do. That is precisely the problem, said another representative, this one a tall being made of what looked like living crystal. The reports on human biology are disturbing. You are pursuit predators. You consume toxins for pleasure. You can survive injuries that would kill most species. You heal at alarming rates. And yet you spend your lives caring for the sick and helping others. Is that a problem? Asked. It is confusing. Most predator species are aggressive and territorial. They take what they want by force, but you chose to save the merchants instead of leaving them to die. You offered medical advice to the being who was threatening you. You showed kindness to the who kidnapped you by accident. The crystal being leaned forward. Why? Thought about the question carefully. He thought about his grandmother who had survived a war and still found reasons to smile. He thought about his patients at the hospital, some of whom had done terrible things in their lives but still deserved care when they were sick. He thought about his dog, who loved everyone unconditionally. Because being kind is not weak, he finally said, and being strong does not mean you have to be cruel. Humans learned a long time ago that we survive better when we help each other. One human alone is fragile, but humans together, we built cities. We crossed oceans. We went to our moon. We did all of that not by fighting each other, but by working together. He paused and looked around the chamber at all the different species watching him. I am just one person, he continued. I cannot speak for all humans. We are complicated. We have done terrible things in our history. We have fought wars and hurt each other and made mistakes that cost millions of lives. But we have also shown incredible kindness. We have created art and music and stories that make people cry with joy. We have risked our lives to save strangers. We have built systems to care for the weak and the sick and the old. He took a deep breath. Humans are not perfect, but most of us, we are trying to be better. We wake up every day and try to leave the world a little better than we found it. That is what I believe. The chamber was silent. Then slowly, the representatives began to make sounds. Did not know what the sounds meant at first, but then he saw in the audience. She was clicking her mandibles and bouncing in her seat. She looked happy. The sounds were applause. "Thank you, Park," said the tall figure at the front of the chamber. "The council will deliberate on the matter of Earth and humanity. In the meantime, we have a proposal for you." Waited. Given your skills and your unique position as the only human known to the galactic community, we would like to offer you a role as humanity's official liaison. You would serve as a bridge between Earth and the rest of the galaxy, helping to prepare your species for eventual contact. It was an incredible offer, a chance to be part of something historic, a chance to shape the future of his entire species. Smiled sadly. "I am honored," he said, "truly, but I have to decline." The chamber erupted in surprised sounds. Even the tall figure looked taken aback. "May I ask why?" it said. "Because I have patients waiting for me," said simply. "I am a nurse. I made a promise to help people who are sick. There is an old woman in Seoul who needs someone to change her bandages. There is a child with cancer who I promised I would read stories to. There is my dog, who has been waiting for me to come home for months." He shook his head. "I am not special. I am not a hero or a leader or an ambassador. I am just a person who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Please let me go home and be that person again." The council deliberated for 3 days. In the end, they made several decisions. First, Earth's contact timeline would be accelerated. Instead of 200 years, humanity would be introduced to the galactic community in 50. This would give humans time to prepare while also acknowledging that the secret was already out. Second, the Merchant Collective would be banned from operating near Earth's sector for the next century. The beings who had kidnapped would face trial for their crimes. Third would be allowed to return home, but he would not go empty-handed. On the day of his departure, the entire crew of the Quiet Observer gathered in the docking bay to say goodbye. Was crying, her mandibles clicking softly. "I will miss you," she said, hugging him tightly. "You were my first human friend." "I will miss you too," said. "Thank you for throwing that blanket at me. I really needed it." Captain Bora stepped forward and handed him a small box. "This is for you. A communicator. It will allow you to contact us whenever you wish, and an invitation to join the Galactic Medical Exchange Program when Earth is officially welcomed into the community." Took the box carefully. "Thank you for everything. I know I was an accident, but you treated me with kindness from the beginning. That meant a lot." Bora placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "The accident was ours. The kindness was yours. You have taught us much about humanity, Park. The galaxy will be better for knowing your species exists." The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks with the Council's faster ships. Spent most of it sleeping, eating, and writing notes about everything he had experienced. He was not sure who he would share them with. Maybe no one. Maybe everyone. He would figure it out when he got home. The ship dropped him off exactly where it had picked him up in his apartment in Seoul. It was the middle of the night, just like before. His bed was still unmade. His scrubs were still on the floor. But this time, there was a present waiting for him on his nightstand. A pair of pajamas, soft and comfortable, with a note attached in careful handwriting. "Please wear these, for diplomatic reasons." Laughed for the first time in months. He put on the pajamas, climbed into bed, and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he would go back to work. Tomorrow, he would see his patients and his colleagues and his dog. Tomorrow, he would start figuring out how to live in a world where he knew aliens existed. But tonight he would sleep. And this time he would not be naked. In the vastness of space, the Quiet Observer turned and began its journey back to the stars. Captain Bora sat in her chair on the bridge, looking at a small photograph that had given her before he left. It showed him and his dog sitting in a park on a sunny day. Both of them were smiling. She looked at the photograph for a long time. Then she placed it carefully on her console where she could see it every day. "The galaxy is not ready for humans," she said softly, "but I think humans might be ready for the galaxy." Sitting at her station nearby, clicked her mandibles in agreement. "Do you think we will see him again?" Bora smiled, a smile with all four of her mandibles. "I think we will see him again, and I think he will still be wearing those pajamas when we do." The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving Earth behind. But the story of Park, the human who slept naked and woke up to change the galaxy, had only just begun.